Have you ever stopped to wonder what keeps a drone perfectly still in the air? Or how your car's cruise control holds its speed so steady? Or maybe what keeps a massive power plant from, exploding? Well, the answer is often the exact same thing. A surprisingly simple, century-old algorithm that is quietly running our entire modern world. Let's dig into how it works, and it all starts with a really old problem.
So picture this. You're at the helm of a giant ship, and you're being tossed around by heavy winds and massive waves. Your one job is to hold a steady course. How do you actually do it? It's definitely not just about yanking the wheel back and forth. No, it's about intuition, it's about experience, and it's about predicting what's going to happen next. And this very question, this is where our story begins.
Because the solution to that old-school sailing problem, which was formalized almost 100 years ago, ended up becoming the foundation for an algorithm that's now in literally everything, from your home thermostat to interplanetary rockets. It's called PID control, and its real genius is in how it mimics a skilled human.
To really wrap our heads around this algorithm, we don't need to start with a bunch of complicated math. We just need to watch a sailor. And that's exactly what one engineer did way back in the 1920s. And what he saw, well, it changed everything. So that engineer's name was Nicholas Minorsky. The U.S. Navy brought him in to figure out a way to make a ship steer itself. But instead of just trying to invent some clunky machine, he did something brilliant. He started by studying the best controllers he could possibly find, actual experienced human helmsmen. He wanted to basically write down the code for their intuition.
And Minorsky, he broke that intuition down into 3 separate things. He realized a good helmsman is always doing 3 things at once. First, they react to the present. So if the ship's 5 degrees off course right now, they apply a correction that's proportional to that error. Second, they account for the past. If there's a steady wind that keeps pushing the ship off course, they learn to apply a constant countersteer to fight it. And third, they anticipate the future. As the ship starts turning back toward the correct course, they begin to ease up on the wheel so they don't just fly right past it. Present, past, and future. You got to remember those 3.
Okay, so those 3 human actions, reacting to the present, correcting for the past, and anticipating the future, they are the absolute heart of the PID algorithm. Each one gets its own mathematical term: proportional, integral, and derivative. Let's break down how each one of these works. All right, first up is proportional, or P for short. This is the most intuitive one. It just looks at the error right now, the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and it applies a corrective force that's proportional to that error. A big error gets a big push. A tiny error gets a tiny nudge. Simple, right? But it's got a flaw. Here's the catch. For P control to do anything, there has to be an error. Think about trying to hold a spring stretched out to a specific spot. You have to keep pulling on it, right? The moment you stop pulling, meaning there's 0 error between your hand and the target, the spring just contracts. P control is exactly the same. It'll get you super close to your target, but it can never quite get there, leaving this small, annoying leftover error. And this is where the integral term, or I, comes in to save the day. Think of it as the system's memory. It looks at the total accumulated error from the past. So as long as that little leftover error from the P controller is still there, the I term just keeps adding a little more corrective action and a little more and a little more until that error is finally stomped out and forced to 0. This is the part that remembers that annoying persistent wind and keeps the ship perfectly on course. But, having a great memory can sometimes be a problem because the integral term has built up all this corrective momentum from all those past errors. It can actually cause the system to blow right past its target. We call this overshoot. The system has so much built up energy that it just can't stop on a dime, just like our ship sailing way past its intended course because it turned too hard for too long. And that brings us to the final piece of our puzzle, derivative, or D. This is the forward-looking, predictive part of the whole thing. It doesn't care how big the error is now or what it was in the past. It only cares about one thing: how fast the error is changing. It's trying to anticipate the future. So here's how it works. As the system starts moving really fast towards the target, the error is shrinking quickly. The D term sees this rapid change and basically yells, "Whoa, slow down, we're going to overshoot." It applies a counterforce, acting just like a brake, to dampen all that momentum that the I term built up. This is what reduces that overshoot and helps the whole system settle down nice and smooth. So you put it all together, and yeah, you get this equation. Now, I know it might look a little intimidating, but it's really just our helmsman's intuition written down in the language of math. You've got the proportional term reacting to the present error, the integral term summing up all the past errors, and the derivative term looking at the future rate of change. That's it. Present, past, and future, all working together in perfect harmony. Of course, knowing the three ingredients is one thing. Getting them to work together just right, that's something else entirely. This process is called tuning, and it's a really critical balancing act. You've got to decide exactly how much influence each of these three terms gets. See, you're always dealing with trade-offs here. If you crank up the proportional gain, for example, your system responds way faster, but you're going to get more of that overshoot we talked about. If you increase the integral gain, you'll finally kill that leftover error, but you guessed it, you also increase overshoot. Then you add more derivative action, and that helps reduce the overshoot, but it doesn't do anything for that final error. So tuning is really an art form. It's about finding the perfect recipe for your specific system. All right, so let's take all this theory and see how it works in a place where the stakes could not possibly be higher. We're going to move from a ship on the ocean to the very heart of a thermal power plant. One of the most vital, and I mean absolutely vital, control jobs in a power plant is maintaining the water level inside the boiler drum. Now, this is not like filling up your bathtub. This is an incredibly dynamic, high-pressure system where getting the level even a little bit wrong can have truly catastrophic consequences. If that water level drops too low, the metal boiler tubes that are carrying the water get exposed to this insane heat. They can overheat and literally rupture, leading to a potential meltdown. On the other hand, if the level gets too high, little water droplets get carried over into the steam. These droplets act like tiny little bullets that erode and completely destroy the incredibly expensive turbine blades. The margin for error here is razor thin. So, to solve this incredibly tricky problem, engineers had to evolve their PID strategies over time. A simple controller that only looks at the water level, that's called one-element control, it fails spectacularly. And here's why. When the demand for steam suddenly goes up, the pressure inside the boiler drops, which makes the water boil even more violently. This causes the water level to swell upwards, even though water is actually leaving the system. So the simple controller gets tricked, it cuts the water supply, and it makes the whole problem way worse. So they added a second element, steam flow, to anticipate those changes in demand. And then a third, feed water flow, to perfectly balance the mass of water coming in and going out. So you can see this really clear pattern, right? Each layer of complexity, adding more information like steam flow and feed water flow, just makes the system more and more robust. The biggest, most critical power plants all use that three-element system because it creates a true mass balance, making it the most accurate and reliable solution for what is truly a life-or-death application. So how common is this algorithm really? Well, the answer is just staggering. It's estimated that over 90% of all industrial control loops in the entire world are running on some version of PID control. 90%. It is, without a doubt, the invisible algorithm that runs our world. And ultimately, the reason for its incredible success is pretty clear. It's not the newest algorithm, it's not the most complex one, but its power comes from a design that is just simple, robust, and beautifully mirrors our own human intuition. It's really a testament to the idea that sometimes the best solutions are the ones that learn from experience. So the next time you see something holding a perfect, steady state, whether it's a drone in the sky or the temperature in your room, remember that helmsman from the 1920s. Remember that simple, powerful logic of correcting for the present, accounting for the past, and anticipating the future. It's an incredible framework for control, not just for machines, but really for solving any complex problem. The only question left is, what will you apply it to?